Collins versus Einstein. The role of ego in leadership. In the world of science, leadership often comes with immense responsibility. Scientists in prominent positions, such as Francis Collins, the head of the National Institutes of Health (NIH), wield significant influence not only in their specific field of research, but also in shaping the direction of science at large. However, when discussing figures like Collins, it's important to think about the role of ego in leadership and how that influences both their scientific careers and the research they oversee. Collins, a devout Christian, has famously integrated his faith into his scientific work, even leading him to become one of the most notable voices in the debate between science and religion. His faith seems intertwined with his scientific approach, a position not universally shared by all leading scientists. Albert Einstein, for instance, though occasionally speaking on spiritual matters, was more skeptical of the idea of a personal God. Despite his personal beliefs, Einstein was known for his humility and intellectual rigor, qualities that enabled him to revolutionize physics without allowing his personal worldview to dominate his work. The influence of ego on scientific leadership. One of the most significant aspects of leadership in science is how ego can influence a scientist's approach to their research and their role as a leader. Ego can shape how a scientist interacts with their colleagues, influences their decisions, and even affects the scientific outcomes they champion. Leaders like Collins, who must balance public policy, funding decisions, and scientific oversight, are at risk of falling into the trap of confirmation bias, a psychological tendency that can cloud their judgment and impact scientific progress. This was a central concern for Einstein. Despite his revolutionary discoveries in relativity, he was always open to disconfirmation and sought to maintain a critical distance from his work. He often expressed doubt and humility in his approach to science, acknowledging the limitations of his knowledge, even after making groundbreaking discoveries. For example, when Einstein published his paper on Brownian motion, he openly admitted, "I believe this is a Brownian motion, but I lack readings," showing an openness to critique and self-reflection. In contrast, figures like Francis Collins, while intellectually gifted and a leader in genetics, might face more challenges in maintaining that level of humility. Collins, who has played a significant bureaucratic role in major projects like the Human Genome Project, has shaped much of the direction of modern medicine. But his deep faith often leads him to present science in a way that aligns with his beliefs, rather than questioning or allowing his scientific conclusions to challenge his faith. Confirmation bias, a growing issue in modern science. In modern science, confirmation bias is running rampant, and ego plays a significant role in perpetuating it. Confirmation bias occurs when researchers seek out information that supports their existing beliefs while ignoring data that contradicts them. This phenomenon can be seen across many fields, from genetics to medicine, and is exacerbated by the pressure scientists face to publish and secure funding. One of the most glaring consequences of confirmation bias in science is the publish or perish culture. Researchers are often incentivized to produce results that confirm existing hypotheses or fit into the current scientific narrative. Studies that support a prevailing theory are more likely to be published, while those that challenge the status quo or present negative results are often overlooked. In this environment, confirmation bias thrives, as scientists are more likely to reinforce their own beliefs rather than critically examine them. This is where ego can have a detrimental effect. When scientists are too invested in their hypotheses, whether due to career incentives, funding, or public recognition, they may ignore contradictory evidence or avoid publishing studies that challenge their beliefs. This creates a feedback loop where false or incomplete ideas can be perpetuated within the scientific community. The role of humility in science. Einstein's ability to remain humble, despite his immense contributions to science, offers an important lesson in scientific integrity. He didn't hesitate to admit when he was unsure, and his openness to other viewpoints allowed him to navigate his complex theories without becoming ensnared by ego. His work was always about the pursuit of truth, not about maintaining personal belief systems or professional status. On the other hand, modern scientific leadership can sometimes become more about personal prestige than the pursuit of knowledge. Collins' integration of faith with science may be seen as an example of how ego can shape scientific outcomes, sometimes in ways that may not fully embrace the uncertainties and questions that science thrives on. For someone in a leadership position like Collins, it's difficult to remain objective when personal beliefs seep into the process of scientific discovery. In many ways, this is reflective of a larger issue in the scientific community, the decline of intellectual humility. As science becomes more competitive and driven by funding and political pressures, scientists and leaders may be more focused on defending their reputations or securing their legacies than on questioning their own assumptions or embracing doubt. Can ego be controlled in science? Is it inevitable that someone in a position like Collins would eventually face challenges with ego? Perhaps. But there are examples in history, like Einstein, where humility took precedence over ego. Einstein's willingness to engage with difficult questions and seek answers from colleagues, such as his consultations with Sigmund Freud on issues like war, demonstrate that intellectual humility is possible even for someone with immense personal achievements. However, today's scientific culture is very different. The pressures of publishing, securing grants, and leading large-scale projects can push researchers away from true scientific inquiry and towards self-justification. As more and more scientists move into leadership roles, there's a risk that the pursuit of personal status may overshadow the scientific method, which demands openness, skepticism, and a willingness to accept that no theory is ever entirely beyond question. Conclusion: the importance of intellectual humility. In the end, the question isn't whether ego can be controlled in science. It's whether the scientific community can cultivate a culture of intellectual humility. Einstein's approach to science, characterized by curiosity and openness, should serve as a model for modern researchers, particularly those in leadership positions. Leaders like Collins, despite their accomplishments, should strive to question their assumptions and embrace the possibility of being wrong. Science has always thrived on challenging the status quo, and without humility and a willingness to entertain doubt, it risks stagnating. If we continue to prioritize personal achievements or confirmatory results over intellectual honesty, we undermine the very foundation of scientific progress. What do you think? Has ego played a role in the way science is advancing today? How can we foster a more humble and curious scientific culture?